Commercial dog breeders are responsible for the sale of millions of puppies nationwide each year, but some don't take care of their animals like they should. Thanks for joining us. I'm Larry Wentz, live from my home in Sioux City.
And I'm Jessica Wildrun, live in the Siouxland News studios. And tonight, a special report on that issue is first at 9. Our Katie Koppel looked at two local breeders who have received numerous violations from inspectors, yet are still in business.
There are thousands of them in the United States, responsible for the sale of millions of puppies each year. But all dog breeders aren't the same. Some are considered puppy mills.
We, as the Humane Society of the United States, define a puppy mill as an inhumane commercial dog breeding facility that, frankly, puts the wealth of the breeder over the welfare of the animal.
Each year, the Humane Society of the United States creates a list of the 100 worst puppy mills in the country, called the Horrible 100 List. One breeder on the list is located in Sioux Center, Iowa. Shaggy Hill Farms has been on this list 3 times.
I think it's a stretch to assume that these folks are going to become good actors. And so we're really hoping that this type of report will kind of create a sense of urgency in the public and from the State Department of Ag and from the USDA that you have a long history of violations here, and it's time for some serious ramifications to come from them.
Based on inspection reports obtained by Siouxland News, Shaggy Hill Farms is licensed by the Iowa Department of Agriculture. A number of times, inspectors were not allowed on the premises. The facility was not approved for a license in January of 2018 because of this. They were not approved again in June of 2018 after a failed inspection. Just a week later, they were approved for a breeding license, though a number of violations were found at the facility. In August of 2019, an inspector discovered multiple unsafe kennels and found that the dogs were too cramped. The kennel was told they could not exceed 80 dogs. At that time, they had 200. Also during this visit, inspectors noted unsanitary conditions and a lack of grooming on some of the dogs. The owners of Shaggy Hill Farms were also instructed to begin hand-walking the dogs twice a day due to lack of exercise space. Inspectors visited the kennel twice more in September and November of 2019, where many of the same violations were still present. They were found to be non-compliant. 2 weeks later, an inspector returned and reported that the violations noted in past reports had been fixed, and the dogs and their kennels were clean. Following the publication of the Horrible 100 List, Shaggy Hill Farms changed their name to JKLM Farm, listed under the same owner and address in Sioux Center, Iowa. Their last inspection of public record was November 27th of 2019. The kennel was found to be compliant and their license was granted through June of 2021.
The general regulations here in the state of Iowa is that dogs in commercial breeding facilities have to have some food, they have to have some water. They have to have some sort of housing. We're talking about kennels with wire floors. We're talking about cages that are just barely big enough for animals to stand up and turn around.
Let's move on to Sheldon, Iowa, where we find USDA licensed breeder Northwest Kennel. Northwest Kennel has been listed on the Horrible 100 List twice and has had a number of violations noted within their recent inspection reports. In July of 2018, federal inspectors found that the kennel was using nearly 24 bottles of expired medications on the dogs, including a bottle of testosterone hormone that had expired in 2001. The facility was also found to be cluttered and dirty, with some kennels rusted so bad it affected their structural strength. Feeders and water bowls were also found to be corroded and dirty. At that time, they had 136 dogs and puppies in their care. A year later, in August of 2019, inspectors returned and found that the feeders, water bowls, and some kennels were still unsafe. They also discovered unsafe flooring that could trap the dogs and found a litter of puppies in a kennel with wire flooring. Their feet were falling through. In January of 2020, another inspection found that the previous violations were never corrected, including housing puppies on wire flooring so wide their feet were falling through the holes. Northwest Kennel holds a B license with the USDA, meaning they are licensed to sell to pet stores. When visiting the address listed for Northwest Kennels, we found Dog House, etc., a pet store selling puppies, kittens, and other animals. A sign on the property said Northwest Kennels. With all of these violations, how are these two breeders and others on this list able to keep their licenses?
Over the last few years, the USDA's enforcement and issuing of violations has gone down dramatically. The USDA inspectors are now using what they call teachable moments, and they're just having conversations with the owners of these facilities instead of actually noting violations. What we really need is for the state of Iowa and the USDA inspectors to be given more authority to actually stop these facilities from producing more puppies and from expanding and from selling their puppies all over the country if this is the type of conditions that we're seeing.
The Horrible 100 list is just that, a list. A tool that the public can use when researching a breeder to purchase a puppy from. But its creators hope this list helps increase breeding regulations as well. I'm Katie Koppel, Siouxland News.
Siouxland News reached out to Doghouse Etc. about the violations. Between emails and a face-to-face conversation with another Siouxland News reporter, the owners did not want to speak to the media. And phone calls to the number listed on the reports for Shaggy Hill Farms, they went unanswered. Now, to see a detailed breakdown of the inspections report and to view the Horrible 100 list for yourself, well, you can visit this story at SiouxlandNews.com and tune in tomorrow night for a look at what is required to be a commercial breeder.